This is the Giraffes Don't Eat Steak podcast, a show that brings you marketing stories, tips, hints, and much more. A treat for those who want to succeed in business or marketers who just want to learn. Hello, Alex.
Hello, good morning, afternoon, whichever one it is to you.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, very well. And yourself?
All good. How was your weekend?
It was good. It was good. We went for a barbecue outside, to a place out in the countryside, which should only take about an hour to get to, but we ended up taking us 3 hours to get there because we decided to go a different route and that route was closed. And then we had to redo it.
And you can't blame me this time.
No.
You got lost all by yourself.
Mm. But it was all good. All good, thank you.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. So, what I thought we could chat about, I was actually talking to someone the other day and they asked, why marketing detective? And I know you and I have been talking for the last couple of weeks about the importance of a name, right? Like, what name should we choose for a business? And actually, we haven't shared with our listeners for quite a long time as to how we got to marketing detective. So, thought we'd go down a nostalgia trip. And maybe it's because for my weekend, I spent Friday night listening to, well, watching the Stylistics live. Now, I know you have no clue who the Stylistics are.
I do now. I do now because
You
you
know?
educate. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I've asked so many people, and I'm quite devastated how few people know who they are. But they have been a band for 56 years. Isn't that like amazing?
A
These
very long
guys were 75 and still like unbelievable on stage. It was
That's awesome.
wonderful.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
so let's continue nostalgia and talk about how we got to be the marketing detective agency.
Well, we haven't always been the marketing detective agency.
Yeah, that's true.
That's where we need to start from. We used to be Orange Tree.
Orange Tree. I remember Orange Tree. Orange Tree was our secret name, right? That was when we both worked in corporate and we were plotting the big escape.
Yeah. How did it start? I think we were on a trip to a work
Greece.
trip to Greece, right?
Yeah, we were in a cab.
Yeah. And we were having one of our many talks about our future endeavors with a marketing agency or marketing business. And I think we were just wasn't it just like a row of orange trees, literally, on
Lots.
down this avenue we were going down, and we thought, well, we need a code name for this because we keep talking about it, and we're not particularly silent people,
No.
uh, and we're not particularly subtle either. So it might be quite obvious when we're in the office talking about this. So we need a code name, and I think I can't remember who it was. It was one of us just looked at the orange tree, and we're like, well, what about an orange tree? Okay, let's keep it like that. And then just became so ingrained into everything we did because it was orange tree, orange tree, orange tree, orange tree, orange tree. The business became Orange Tree.
Yeah, that's where we started. And I remember we did subtle things like I got you cufflinks with orange tree on it, and I had a necklace with a secret orange tree on it, and
The
we had a
little,
miniature orange tree
yeah,
on my desk, and
that was
um,
quite funny. I thought the orange tree in the office was quite provocative.
to to keep us motivated, right? Like, and
Yeah.
yes, and so when the business was born, Orange Tree was its name. I mean, in hindsight, it wasn't the most logical name. We had to do quite a lot of explaining to people that we were not, in fact, an orange farm and did not distribute oranges.
Yeah, which is probably a good thing because as far as I remember, our orange tree that we bought didn't bear that many fruit.
No, and then it died.
Yeah. So it's some kind of miracle that we're not in. Well, no, I mean we should be thankful that we didn't decide to go into the orange tree business.
Business. I agree. We would not have done well in the orange tree business.
Did the name die with the tree dying? Did it coincide with that? Was
No, the
that
tree died after.
the
So
tree
after
died
after
after?
the business. And in fact, my kids are still quite hung up on orange tree, to be honest. And James in particular, my son, was most unhappy that we killed orange tree. It really upset him. He really liked the name. I think they were quite involved with trying to keep this orange tree alive. But
I think it also hurt my brother as well because he
really,
made lots of
oh yeah, he
he
made
made
us
lots of
Christmas tree
things. He made
decoration,
Christmas tree. He made
coasters.
coasters and things like that with the orange tree. And then shortly after, we changed the name. He's like, oh no.
Yeah. And then the marketing detective agency was born. And actually, that name suits us better, right? It works better. It's just too long that we, unfortunately, from a
Mm.
URL perspective, it's too long. But from a name perspective, I always get comments on what a cool, interesting name, right?
I think personally, I like the name. I think it's very fitting for us. I think it also kind of it's fitting for us, and it also is descriptive as to what we do. It does have its drawbacks, like you said. It's the world's longest URL, and our email addresses are just ridiculous.
At least we didn't put this dot surname. That would have been worse.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. Maybe we should just transition to we do have the marketingdetectives.co.uk.
We
So
do.
maybe we can shorten it there. Maybe we've had long enough in the market to be able to shorten us a bit now. But I think it's nice that we can be open about our our pros and cons of things.
Oh, I was going to say failings, but I'm a little bit more straightforward than you, right? It was definitely
I
too
was
long.
the failings that was on the tip of my tongue, but
Ah, okay.
I wanted to say pros and cons. I wanted to be a little bit fair, a bit fairer to us.
So why detective? I get asked this a lot, and what I say is it's from my bodyguard background, right? I'm not sure how many people know, but I worked as a bodyguard for 9 years and transitioned from bodyguard into marketing, which is not an obvious fit. But as a bodyguard, not a bouncer, I spend a lot of my time investigating, right? Investigating the client. Are they going to scream, faint, run away, get drunk? How are they going to behave on the job? The attacker, do they like a splash? Are there going to be lots of them? Are they going to sneak in and drop poison in the food? Are they going to come in with guns or bombs? How are they likely to behave? The venue. So you know this very well. I always know where the loos are, no matter where we go. It's on autopilot. I can suss out a room very quickly. I know all the exits, entrances.
You always have to sit with your back to the walls with your facing the entrance or the exit or whatever. Quite,
Absolutely.
quite
I,
irritating, really, because sometimes I just want to sit down. Oh, I can't sit here because there isn't my seat's not available. But they've got a really nice burger.
sorry, can't do it. Can't sit with my back to an open door. And lastly, the route, right? That if I'm transporting the client from A to B, I have to know the route very well. And so all of that investigative work is what we do when we work with a client. We need to understand the target audience, everything about them. We also do a lot of work about the client, right? What do they like doing? What's their passion? What are their goals? How many leads do they actually need? Because a client who needs, two leads, two sales a month, is very different from a client who needs 200 sales a month.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
the work and the niche and everything is completely different. So we are both believers in the fact that if you do the detective work up front, then the marketing part becomes easy, right?
A lot easier, yeah.
And I think you've also become a little bit of a detective because of our trips to South Africa, where you had to learn to be a bit more aware, right? It's not just a case of walking wherever you want.
Well, yeah, and I mean it's a bit similar in Colombia as well now.
Yeah, there we go. So our detective skills have come in handy.
Yeah, I mean, and also I would say um, of many of the things that are shared interests, one of them being karaoke, one of them is also kind of, well, I think we're slightly different, but the kind of true crime
Yeah.
TV shows and things like that. I mean, you're an avid whodunit fan and Agatha Christie. I'm also partial to a few of those, but I think we also have that kind of shared interest in investigation in general and that kind of storyline. And probably both a little bit nosy as well.
Oh, I was going to say a lot nosy. I don't think we're a little bit nosy. Whenever we were around, we could spot a potential story in the making in a crowd,
Yeah,
right? We're like, "Oop, what's going on over there?"
yeah. And I think, and also just the other thing to add is like, why did we even bother with trying to start the business? Like, why? We were kind of having comfortable jobs and things like that. I think because we just realized that we were giving away a lot of freebies, right? Everybody we were speaking to, because of our kind of
Passion.
um, our natural need to investigate and be nosy, we would see problems that people were having that they didn't know they were having, the pebble in the foot, and making them aware of it and giving some free advice. And then after a while, we sort of like we've probably lost out on quite a lot of income already just from all the free advice we've been giving. How about we start thinking about converting this into a real business?
Yeah, and we like helping people, right? That aha moment when you're talking to someone about really honing in on their niche and you see their eyes light up because they get it. That's like
Gold.
so amazing. I met someone at networking a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about the fact that they have hempers. This is their business, they have hempers. And you know me, I can't help myself. I said, "Oh, I have to tell you, no one here wants a hamper. They don't want a hamper. Like, what is the problem you solve?" And we worked out that what they solve is, especially now at Christmas, that you can have thank you gifts to appreciate your employees. Like, say that. And by the
Mm,
end of it, they came back to say they had 3 leads
nice.
by focusing
And
on
the benefit,
that.
what they're actually selling.
Exactly, instead of a hamper, right? No one wants a hamper.
Yeah.
So that just gives me goosebumps when someone gets it right and gets
Mm,
it right, and then
yeah.
it's successful.
So I was watching, have you heard of a TV show called Modern Family?
Yes, I have.
I was watching an episode of that last night, and Jay is the stepdad of Manny. Manny's a little kid, and he's trying to make some money, and he's trying to sell wrapping paper at Christmas, and he's knocking on all the doors trying to sell the wrapping paper, and he has no success, whatever. And he says, Jay, I don't understand. I'm rubbish at this. I'm not a very good salesperson. Why am I not selling anything? And Jay says, "What are you saying?" And he's saying, "Well, I'm knocking on the door and asking if they want to buy any Christmas wrapper, so wrapping paper." And he said, "That's where you're going wrong. You're not selling wrapping paper. You're selling Christmas. You're selling excitement. You're selling exciting moments of opening up presents. You're selling the joy you see in your kids. You're selling the moment that you're opening up and hear the of the paper. That's what you're selling. You're not selling wrapping paper." And I was like, huh, you're right, Jay.
And that's exactly right. That's what we help people do. And that's the detective part because we help them dig into that part, right? What is it that you actually offer? What is the problem that you solve?
Yeah.
And we get joy out of that, to be honest. That's fun for us.
No, exactly. So, I mean, we've been through a couple of iterations of names, and we like our name personally, and we think it resonates, but we think it's a bit too long. I mean, we've had this discussion a few times. Does it matter the name of your business? Is it the most important part of your business?
Yeah. And I think again, it depends. If you are a business that is going to be reliant on Google searches, for example, or on people finding you without any interaction, then it probably should make sense, right? And, if we were expecting people to Google orange tree to go and find us, that was going to be difficult because they wouldn't think I'm looking for a marketing company. Oh, yes, orange tree is its name, right? There'd be a bit of a
Yeah.
disconnect.
Well, I guess the devil's advocate side of that would be that your site needs to be well um, written in terms of SEO, so that it
Agree,
has all the right things, and the name doesn't necessarily matter on that side.
agree, agree. But I think if you are doing most of the promoting yourself, and then people are using your website as a validation or corroboration of who you are and what you can deliver, then maybe the name doesn't matter, right? You can be called Apple or Chocolate Box or whatever it is, and as long as people understand the service, then
Yeah,
then the name doesn't matter.
I mean, and some of the biggest brands in the world don't have a name that makes any sense. Like you said, Apple, or even some of them, it's just a hybrid of the two owners' names. Like is it Adidas, I think. It doesn't say anything about sports shoe. Um,
But the backstory's nice, right? So that's the other thing is make sure you didn't just pick it out of the air. Although maybe that's your story, right? Oh, we just had a few names in a bucket and we picked one out. But the backstory to be able, like we can talk about Orange Tree, we can talk
yeah.
about Marketing Detective. I think that adds authenticity to who you are, right? In terms of how
Well,
did you get to that name?
no, I completely agree with that. I think it's if wherever you have a story is important, whether it's why the business started or why you have that name or why or the stories of how it's helped people or whatever it is. Stories are always powerful. I've noticed a real trend here in Colombia in restaurants. Um, in the menu, they always have a story
Okay,
about,
that's nice.
about about why the restaurant started. I went to this like a vegan cafe like yesterday. Not that I'm a vegan, just so happened to go there. And they had a story in there, and they were a Colombian couple, and they were traveling around South America, and they were in, I think it was in Ecuador or somewhere, and they literally run out of money. They had $10 left to their name. They had absolutely nothing left. And his partner was pretty good at like cooking, just cooking in general. And they came across this small market, and they were selling, all they sold was lentils. And so they decided, okay, we've only got $10. Let's just buy some lentils, and we're gonna make some burgers out of them. And they made a few of these burgers and took them to the beach, and just so happened to be a beach where there were lots of foreigners, and they were kind of there was quite a lot of vegetarian foreigners there. And they made these burgers, and they sold like hotcakes. And they were like, wow, we sold out completely, and everyone still wanted more. So they went back, bought some more, and then it kept on doing that for a while. And okay. And then their story just somehow traveled around. And when they went to Peru on their next trip, they arrived at this place, and apparently there's already people talking about lentil burgers that they tried in the coast in Ecuador, and they're like, "Oh, that was us," and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember you." So they start doing it again, da, 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 da. And that's kind of like how their business grew. And so it was just out of a need of we need a bit more than $10, and they found their own little niche.
No, I see. I love a story. I think a backstory linked to your name is always cool. What is the name of the store? $10?
Lenteja Express, like Lentil Express.
Okay, still related. That's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. And I think it's because it's like Lentil Express is kind of like fast food,
Hmm.
vegetarian fast food burger thing. So it kind of makes sense. Um, so yeah, that I mean that had a nice story.
Yeah. I think the only thing to be aware of, yes, if you do your website well and your SEO well and all the rest of it, the name doesn't matter. But the more obscure your name is, the more explaining you have to do. That's the only thing. Like when we were Orange Tree, we had to do a lot more explaining about the fact that we don't sell oranges, but that we do marketing than
That's
we
true.
do now. As marketing detective, I
That's
don't
true.
think once we've had to say we do marketing because the name kind of helps us. So that is the one advice I'd give is just be aware of how hard you have to work. If you do choose an obscure name,
Yeah,
you have to work a little bit harder to explain to people, especially if it's a name like Orange Tree that's something else, to explain to people that it's not orange. We're not an orange farm.
yeah. So if the story's there, it's okay because you've already got the work done there as to why the
Exactly.
there.
Although
But
you
if
have
it,
to then keep
you
it
do have to
going.
keep, yeah,
You have to make a video about it. You have to
yeah,
make sure there's a post about it, that there's a blog about it, that people can put it in your LinkedIn profile, right? So that you have to make sure that that connection is easily found. Whereas if your name is obvious, that's a piece of work you don't have to do that much.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, there's like a lot of tech brands these days that just have really obscure names.
Yeah, that's true.
And a lot of them are kind of what were they called? Compound words,
Yeah,
compound something like that. Joining two things together. You see that quite a lot, and I think that somehow in that industry it's sort of become the norm to see the name, and you kind of think that's tech because it has this obscure compound name, so it must be tech. I kind of think that now whenever I see a name grid matrix or something like that, you know.
yeah. And then,
Uh,
I mean, the other part, well, in South Africa, there's where in the town where I'm from, there is a trend trend is it a trend, I don't know, to name your child as a combination name of the first names of the parents, and you can come up with some lovely combinations. So I guess humans have enjoyed combining names for a long time.
what would your name be?
My name would have been, so my mom is Lynn and my dad is Ted. Tedlin Linted, I don't know.
Linden. Linden.
Well,
I'll
my
be
my my kid would have been Doronika, right?
Veronica.
Instead, she's Kimberly and very glad to be Kimberly.
Veronica, yeah. What would I be? Penny and Martin. Marnie.
Yeah, something like that.
Marty.
Marty, baby.
Marty. Yeah.
Martini. If you do it properly, you have to
Marty.
be Martini.
Martini.
So there are lots of ways to create names. I mean, the other part of this is the URL, right? And we've also had long debates about the URL. And, marketing detector, we've gone with .com just because it was comfortable. But over time, I mean, you're getting .tech now. I saw .marketing the other day. So the dot can be anything.
Yeah.
But the question is again, and even this applies to spelling errors in your name. I say errors, you do it on purpose, right? But it's or dashes or those kind of things. You need to think about how hard is it for your audience if they're going to type in your URL. So a
Hmm.
lot of people will automatically go .com. And it's changing over time. It's definitely changing, but it's something to be aware of. And spelling errors is one of those, right? Well, people not even just people, Google will also automatically correct the spelling when you type it.
That's true.
Um,
The .com one is it's kind of the daddy. It's the go-to. It's a nice one to have.
but it's
But
so hard to find one that's left. They're all
yeah,
taken, right?
yeah. Depending on your industry as well. If you're um, a, s- a lawyer, a serious lawyer, you probably don't want .tech.
Mm.
It's a complete disconnect to your business. But if it's a if it's a tech company, .get them tech, it makes absolutely sense. But the other thing we were saying as well, just to add on to that, when you're saying that they're not always available, is that when you come up with a name, don't get too attached to it until you find that
Check
uh,
the
your
URL.
name is actually available. I think we had that with the clients.
A
Uh,
few clients where they've
yeah,
been devastated where it wasn't. It
there
just,
wasn't anything available.
and they were in love, right?
Yeah, but you're right. The real estate is minimizing in terms of the availability, and there's people who have been buying up hundreds and thousands of URLs whenever they just hear of a name and they just buy it so that one day they can sell it. Okay, fair, good business for them, but it does just mean that there's limited availability for
Yeah.
some that's out there.
Well, for both my kids, I've bought their names. I own the URLs for those,
Yeah,
just in case they want to use it one day, right? Then
yeah.
it's there. And now I bought it for 99p,
Mhm.
rather than when they're ready, someone else has got it and they're going to pay a fortune, right? So,
I got absolutely shocked the other day because when we were thinking about a name for this other venture that we're thinking about, I just completely forgot that my web browser is obviously in Colombia, and in Colombia they have the peso, but the sign is the US dollar.
mm.
And I was looking for the one that we were thinking about, and it said it was like 10,000 US dollars. And I was like, oh my God, no. It's actually just 10,000 pesos, which is like £2.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But I have seen some of the ones we were looking at, which are in the range of £10,000, right? You're like, ah, okay, can't have that one. Move on.
yeah, yeah. And it's irritating as well, especially when they've just been bought. They're not actually using because it says it's available for, but yeah, £1,000 for this year and the following year, £2,000. Um, but you type that URL into the address bar and it just, well, there's nothing there because it's not connected to anything. And you're like, bugger.
No.
It's a real bugger. But so I would say in general, choosing a name can have has importance. The story is really important. It can be very helpful in just shortening the amount of work or lessening the amount of work that you need to do to describe what you offer.
Yeah,
Um, can also be important to make sure you have one that's available as a domain. But I would say don't let it be a blocker to getting started.
absolutely.
I think that the most important thing is your product or service that you have an idea for, and crafting the value for your customers is just completely outweighs the name of the brand.
And you can change it, right? We changed. It was fine, other than my son that cried and your brother. But we changed. It was fine.
Yeah. What's one of the most famous brand name changes? I'm just going to quickly Google that. Famous brands that changed their names. Let's have a look. Do you know what? Well, do you know what Google was?
What was Google?
It used to be called a back rub.
Well, there we go.
And Amazon used to
I
be
don't think I'm gonna back rub it has quite the same
yeah.
same appeal.
There's some interesting ones here. Amazon used to be Cadabra.
Okay.
Tinder, the dating app, used to be called Matchbox. Um, Snickers used to be Marathon. Yeah. Yeah, so there's been a few big name ones that have changed. So it's um it's a viable option to do if you get to a point where you think this is not working for us anymore.
Absolutely. Like we did with our industry, right?
And I guess the big one that happened recently was Meta.
Yeah.
So
And X,
an X, of course, yeah, yeah, good one.
although that one hasn't really landed as well as I think he hoped, but it's still early days.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's also marred by many other variables. Just him as a character, I think, rubs some people up the wrong way.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, other than the fact that we both love our name, which is good, uh, and uh, and we've got a good combined story to talk about it. I know you said we also both like karaoke. This stylistics concert on Friday was literally like a room of full-on karaoke. You would have loved it. The whole place was singing
Lovely.
along. It was unbelievable. And I was probably one of the youngest people there, but it was awesome. And then it's at some point, people were on their feet, like this whole theater of people on their feet singing and dancing. It was like giant
Really.
karaoke. It was fabulous.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's nice. As always, I do love a good nostalgic concert.
Yeah, I was
Everybody's
really
very
brilliant.
passionate in those.
Awesome. Right. Top tips for names. I think the big thing, Alex, is just start. Right. I think often your procrastination about getting the name right, the URL right, etc., is just so that you don't get started. I'm looking at myself here in the mirror. Erica, just get started. Um, because although it does matter and has pros, it actually also doesn't matter because your offer and what you are, the value you're adding to your clients is far more important.
It's going to carry you a lot further.
Yeah.
Um, I don't really have anything to add to that. I mean, I think that would just be the most important thing. Have a name that you connect with. I think you generally speaking, people will come across a name fairly easily in terms of based on their story of how they got there or whatever their product is. But the other one, I would just say, yeah, just please check the availability on the domain before you start creating logos and before you start putting it out publicly, because then you just got a bit of backtracking to do. So think of a name, and in that same second, just jump online, go to GoDaddy or whatever, and search for that name, please. It will save you a lot of hassle and potentially money if you get too stuck with the name.
And heartache if you fell in love, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, fantastic as usual, Alex.
Thank you very much.
You have a great day and we'll talk
You
later.
too. You too. Chat later. Bye bye.
Bye.
That wraps up this episode of Giraffes Don't Eat Steak. Thanks for joining us. I hope you found value in our discussion and got some new ideas to apply to your own business. Tune in next week for another round of marketing insights and inspiration. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate you listening. Catch you next time on Giraffes Don't Eat Steak.